This is the Hope Not Note podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by note.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandy.
And we're here to bring you out of the note and into hope.
Welcome to the Hope Not Note podcast. We are back with another episode, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. Mainly because this is a trendy topic and I do not know the research on it yet. And so I'm hoping Dylan can enlighten me and hopefully enlighten you listeners as well.
I hope so too.
This topic is from a listener named Jay, and they ask, will hydrogen water help me become more healthy? So my question in the midst of that is really, is hydrogen water, does it make you healthy, or is hydrogen water a hoax?
Great question. And I think let's start with, what is hydrogen water?
Enlighten us.
Enlighten us. Because when I first heard of hydrogen water, I was like, isn't all water hydrogen water?
H2O.
H2O.
That's the H part.
So there's two hydrogens in there. So are we drinking H3O? Like, what is hydrogen water? And basically, there's different ways to have hydrogen water. One is you have a bottle and it uses a electrical current that goes through it, and it works by electrolysis, where it splits the H2 and the O apart, so you have more of H2 available to consume in it. That's one thought. There's tablets, there's other things that can be used, but it basically you're trying to get more of a dissolved gas of hydrogen. So is it healthy? Is it a hoax? Should you be drinking it? It's a great question. And whenever we see these wellness trends, that's exactly what we should be asking. What is the research on this? Because if you go on a website of a company that's selling these hydrogen water bottles, that you get the bottle and you just put regular water into it, and then it uses electrolysis to go through and create hydrogen water, they're going to tell you all these benefits. They're going to say it reduces inflammatory cytokines or processes in the body. It's full of antioxidants. It will improve your health. It'll improve your endurance. You name it, it'll keep going on and on about how beneficial it is. But it reminds me a little bit of, if you remember back in the day, there was these belts that you could put on. And when you put these belts on, they sent an electrical current through and they would contract your abs for you.
Yes. Right?
They were like infomercial mania with these things. And you don't have to do sit-ups. You can put this belt on and get a six-pack. And everyone's like, heck yeah, I want the six-pack. I want to gain abs. And they said the research shows that it improves your core strength by using this belt this amount of times per day. But what they didn't tell you is the population that research study actually showed the benefits of that in. That population tended to be a muscular dystrophy population, or a condition in which neurologically these muscles weren't able to contract because there's something going on with the neural contraction. So in a population that doesn't have voluntary control over this muscle group, this electrical belt did help them gain core strength. But in a population that does have that control, the belt really didn't do that much for them. So with hydrogen water, well, you want to answer that same question. Well, if it's like, people aren't just making up the claims that it does these things. But we do have to ask, well, in what population did these health benefits happen in? And when we ask that question, we start to really get to peel back the data a bit more. So for example, one particular study showed that it was a health benefit. It decreased inflammatory biomarkers. The population it showed it in was in people that had non-fatty or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and you want to decrease inflammatory markers, well, hydrogen water, as of now, from what we know, because the research is still pretty young on this, but as of now in that population, it can be beneficial. So we start looking at other conditions, because they looked at hydrogen water with people that have metabolic syndrome. And what they found in that study is that the group having hydrogen water versus regular water did have benefits. But there was a confounding variable that they reported in the abstract and in the summary. And that confounding variable was the hydrogen water group also had high levels of physical activity compared to the control group who had regular water. They weren't instructed to have higher physical level activity. It just happened from the sample size that they used, that this group that was randomized into this experimental group of having hydrogen water that their just activity levels were higher. So the group that drank hydrogen water and had high levels of physical activity had improved health outcomes from the biomarkers and all this other stuff. So then what actually created that?
Right.
The hydrogen water or the high levels of physical activity?
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone will know our bias on this is that movement's medicine.
Yeah.
Anytime you have high levels of physical activity that a person is able to do consistently, they're going to have better health outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And so to answer it very shortly, should you drink hydrogen water? Well, are you doing all the other things first?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to add that in, then sure, but let's keep on going through some of the other research. So those were the populations of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, the population of metabolic syndrome. But what about in a group that does not have these comorbidities, a quote unquote healthy group? Well, the one research that I remember reading looked at kind of splitting it into two groups. There's a group of over 35 and a group under 35. And they found in this study that the inflammatory markers did improve. But when you dive deep into the study, you look at all these different cytokines, all these different things that would signal that there's an inflammatory reaction happening, all these different cells. They found a significant difference in one cell group, which was CD14, I believe that it was. But because they found it in that one group, they were able to conclude that the group having hydrogen water had a improved antioxidant and decreased the inflammatory response. But it was in one of the many mighty cytokines. The other ones didn't show any difference whatsoever. And the significant difference was shown in the group over 35 years old. Younger than 35, there was no difference whatsoever. And then another study looked at individuals over 70 years old. And they did show more of a benefit the older that you get. So what I took away from that is, should you drink hydrogen water? Well, what age are you? The older that you are, then right now the research shows that it might be more beneficial. The younger that you are, you can drink regular water. You can drink carbonated water. You could drink tap water. All that's in my head right now is the water boy. And water sucks. But it doesn't. Water is great.
Yeah, stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated. And that's key, is just making sure that you're getting enough water.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting that when we look across the lifespan at over 35 years old, that people are having these benefits when it comes to inflammatory biomarkers. But the way that I look at it, as you get older, you take on more stressors.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue a 45-year-old male or female has more stressors than a 25-year-old male or female. It may not seem like it because it's relative to the point of time that you are in your life in that season. But I look back and I'm like, yeah, grad school was crazy. Like that was a lot of work. Nothing compared to running a business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at different seasons, you take on more stressors. So I do think there is something that as you get older that you probably do have more inflammatory responses happening in your body, but you're also taking on more stressors. So is it necessarily a bad thing to have more inflammatory markers in the body when you're taking on more stressors? Mm-hmm. And if so, I don't think the solution is hydrogen water. I think it's looking and seeing, how do I better adapt to those stressors? How can I change my work schedule around? Is there any point in the day that I can take a small little 20-minute nap? Can I get more food in? Can I get in more active movement? Can I do something in the week that is fulfilling to me? And if you're doing those things and then want to supplement it with hydrogen water, I'm all on board on it. Mm-hmm. So to answer the question, is it healthy or is it a hoax? The jury's still out. Mm-hmm. We can't conclude one way or another. But I would say right now, make sure that you fit the population that it should be marketed to based off of the research. And we saw something like this happen with sodium bicarbonate. And what that was in sports performance, like put sodium bicarbonate in your water, and that's going to help you perform. It's going to improve your endurance. And what ended up happening as more randomized, double-blinded, placebo-based trials came out, all of a sudden sodium bicarbonate didn't hold up as well. Now, there's been a decent amount done on hydrogen water that has been randomized, double-blinded, and placebo-based, but more needs to be done on it. So I think my take on it right now is we don't have enough evidence to say that it's a hoax.
Sure.
We have some evidence to say that it's healthy in particular populations, but right now we're at a point that we need to see this shown more and time again, because the results that we're seeing right now could just be from the way that the experiment is set up. But if it's repeated over time, now we got to start to go, I manipulated time. Sorry, quick segue from this funny video that we saw. But back to the point is we got to see this study repeated over time. And once we see it repeated over time, then we can start to come to the conclusion that, yes, we should be drinking our water, this hydrogen rich type water, or no, we can just drink regular water.
Now I'm so distracted. I don't even know how to go forward from there. I do have an additional question though, because I just know people who get excited about these new trendy things. So they're like, oh, there's all this stuff out there that's saying this, but the reality is that stuff is just promoted by the company who's trying to sell. And so it's like, oh, what is the stuff saying? But I also heard that with hydrogen water, you can take like hydrogen water baths. So it's not really about drinking, but it's also about like bathing in the hydrogen water, which makes me think of like bathing in Epsom salts and like all these different things. And this is not a bath episode by any means, but like when you did research, did you see anything about like bathing in hydrogen water?
No, I haven't seen anything yet on bathing in water. I think it's still so what ends up happening is that the wellness field creates all these different things. And we've talked about on episodes before of confirmation bias, and they'll hit on these confirmation biases, and then they'll get influencers to promote it and do different episodes on these different things. And then I get it. Like a lot of people truly believe in this product, and it's not so much about the money. It's about their belief in this product, but the research hasn't really been conducted in it yet. So the wellness field explodes with these new things. And then as it explodes, the researchers go, well, we should really be doing some work on this, because most of the stuff in wellness is not FDA regulated. It hasn't necessarily been approved. It hasn't gone through all of these different trials to say that it actually works. They do their own testing in-house to make sure that people don't die when they consume these supplements or bathe in it or things like that. But it's not well-conducted, non-biased research. How do you conduct non-biased research on a product that you created and that you love and that you think is going to save the world? You can't. No, you can have the best experimental design, but you're still going to be biased. Yeah. So outside parties need to be doing the research that's not funded by that company. So wellness explodes, and then science looks at it and goes, well, we should get some more answers to this. We got to try to catch up. So why don't we start catching up with what we need to first? And the first thing is consumption. Like people are drinking this and putting it into their bodies. So we need to start there and get the evidence. And then we can go out into the other things of like bathing in it and things like that. And we can do this on another episode. I'm sure people have questions of like, well, bathing, like Epsom salts. I know I used to use them after every football game. Fill up the bathtub, get some bubbles in there. Love the bubbles, playing with a little Santa Claus beard. But throw the Epsom salt in there, and the Epsom salt got out. I'm like, oh man, my body feels way better, less sore, this and that. And there's research on Epsom salt, and as far as we know, it doesn't do a thing. Yeah, it's more of just our thought of what's happening from that. And people will get into, well, it's because science can't look at the human body's electrical field and how the salts are interacting with the electrical field. And hey, maybe one day the science will be able to do that. But I think when it does do that, we're going to see that there's really not too much of an interaction between a salt in a bathtub and the electrical field of the human body. Maybe there will be. Maybe it'll be proved wrong, and we can look back on this episode and be like, dang, that's pretty cool. But I would find it hard to believe that bathing in hydrogen water does significant benefits to the human body, other than the fact of if a person thought that it was going to do that.
Well, and you say things so eloquently, because in my head, I would just say, it doesn't do jack frickin' crap, but maybe that's not a kind way to say it, but more so like, it really does come back to like, what is your thought about this thing? And obviously we all have our own biases, and I'm just gonna bias Hope Not Nope, because like the solutions in Hope Not Nope are heavily researched. Like you didn't just throw in some random thing saying this is like a cure-all, fix-all. Like everything that's in the book is heavily researched. We do our best to provide updated research, updated science, so that you can feel confident as a consumer. But in addition to that, like it's really the simple, not easy solutions. And I just hope that when people get like hop on different bandwagons and different trends, like they're really realizing the power of the thought towards whatever that is. And my desire is that they can start looking at the simple, not easy solutions and seeing that, you know, we always talk about it, but like having quality sleep is going to go a lot further than any hydrogen bath or hydrogen water is going to do. And that is, getting a great night's sleep is not easy, especially if you're working 2 jobs or you have young children or you have a lot of stressors at work that keep you up at night. Like, it's not easy to get a good night's sleep, but it is a simple solution that needs to have effort to be put in. And I just think that's going to do more for you than these trendy topics. So
yeah,
that's my tangent.
Well, interesting point. I'm going to hijack the host seat for a second and ask you a question.
Oh, juicy.
With this, but I want to start it by saying it's interesting looking at the wellness field and supplements and how it's really turned from what supplements were created for. Originally, supplements were created for people in poverty that couldn't afford getting whole foods or regular food sources. So it was a fix for people that couldn't afford it. Now, in modern times, the supplements are for the people that are well off and have resources.
Yeah.
That they have the extra money to spend on these things and try it out. And hey, we're all for trying things out if you've done the research. Well, the common question we always ask people is, what are you putting your faith in?
Yeah.
And if you're putting your faith in the supplement, well, what happens when that supplement is no longer available?
Yeah.
Like what happens then? Then you're just going to go off the rails? Like what are you putting your faith in? Whether it's a treatment, whether it's a supplement, but we really have to start looking at the brain and how beautifully our nervous system is made, and the power of thought. The power of thought it's shown in surgery, it's shown in medication. Like Brandon said in the book, it's heavily researched, and I didn't think that was going to happen when I started this whole thing of research. I remember sitting in neuro and the neuro professor going, everything's neuro, and me going, boo, ortho and sports, I don't want neuro. And
literally everything is neuro.
Everything's neuro. And I remember using ultrasound and wanting it to be the thing that's going to fix this athlete's foot, using electrical stimulation and having that be the thing that's going to cure chronic back pain so that this person can go back to work and provide for their family. I wanted these things to work. And because I wanted them to work so bad, I had no choice but to research it and look at it and say, does it actually work? Or am I wasting their time and their money? And as I got into researching that, then it led into these supplements and all these other things that elite athletes, everyday athletes are thinking that they need to use, and all the research concluding with the same thing. Once we get into these placebo, double-blinded, randomized control trials, we really start to see that, yeah, that thing really didn't do too much for them. That was their thought. So the question I have for you, hijacking the host seat, is how do you have these conversations with people when they come up and they're like, hey, oh my gosh, I swear by this thing. It was a miracle. I put this tablet in my water and my chronic illness is gone. And we're like, that was salt. You literally put salt in your water. You probably drank more water, but what really got rid of the condition and the illness you had was the power of the thought that you had. And that played a role in it, right? Like on Looney Tunes, we talk about it in the book, but Michael's secret stuff.
Yeah.
Those Looney Tune characters, they drink that secret sauce and then they're out there just crushing the game, right? So there is something about you take something in the environment and then that leads you to a thought and then leads you to thinking that that agent in the environment created that outcome. But then when we look back on it retrospectively, we realize that, no, that was your thoughts that did that. But how do you have that conversation with someone when they come up and they're like, man, my knee was killing me, but I had some hydrogen water and I'm feeling good.
Yeah. Well, I want to say first that I have been that person before. And so I feel like I can witness in a way, but I also feel like because I've been that person, there's a lack of like trust with me if it's me specifically doing the talking. So I do want to say that first. Like there has been times where like I had a chiropractor tell me that this certain supplement was going to help alleviate my inflammation and like alleviate the pain and discomfort that I was in. So much so that I took that supplement every day for like multiple years, like literally multiple years. And if I missed it for a day, I was in pain the entire day or like the entire next day because it wasn't in my system. And I look back and I'm like, that was just my thought. Like 100%. I don't think it was harming my body by any means, but it had to have been my thought because I was like, oh crap, I didn't take it today. Oh, now my foot hurts. And oh, now my back hurts. And it's like, that's how beautiful our brain is. That's how like, I don't say it as like, oh, it's all in your head, suck it up. But I say it as like, our brain is powerful and beautiful. And I have been there. But I think when talking to other people, you have to ask yourself, what is your current relationship with that person? And are they ready to receive what you desire to tell them? Because I have friends currently that I don't believe that I could have that conversation with them yet because I don't think that they're ready to receive it. And I might try and drop hints here and there and say things subtly or share my own experience in a different context, but not direct hit them. But I just sometimes like a person is not ready for you to direct hit them, and it's better to love them and plant seeds of how robust and adaptable their body is versus the need to be controlled and consumed by this like supplement and financially like giving your resources and your time and energy and all that. Like, yeah. So I think that there's that. Now, if you have built a relationship with the person where you can direct hit them, then I think you need to do so because people deserve to know the truth. However, you need to do it with love and with grace. And I say that specifically because I can get fired up. As you can, I literally just said jack freaking crap on the podcast like 3 minutes ago. Like I can get fired up really easily and say things that can be interpreted the wrong way. And so being able to direct hit something with grace is going to better serve that person than almost coming at them with a crap ton of research is not necessarily the way that's going to help them get on your side if it's like aggressive. But coming at them with grace and care and compassion, I think, is always the way to do it.
I'll add on, the only time to direct hit it if they're not ready for it is if what they're taking or doing is harmful.
Yes.
And if it's known to be harmful and there's evidence to back that, like step in and make sure that they're not doing that.
Of course.
Also that they're not spending $30,000 or an extraordinary amount on something that's going to leave them with an empty promise. Like we see that all too often. And it's not our job necessarily to connect the dots for people in these conversations, but it is our job to put the dots out there, make them curious, ask questions. So then they go back and feel like, oh, I should do more research on this. Like, oh, you're taking that supplement and you said it's doing some great things. Hey, do you mind sharing with me the research that you have on that? So then they share it with you and you go, well, this research is actually from the homepage of that company. Is there any other research that's been done that's not partnered with that company? Oh, actually, there's not. Well,
what do you think that means then?
What do you think that means?
You're really great. Dylan's really great at asking leading questions for them to get to the answer as opposed to like me who just wants to tell them the answer.
Yeah, it's balance.
Yeah.
It's all about balance. But they are tough questions to have. And oftentimes when I'm working with people, we're working with people, that's one of the things. Like, hey, are you taking any supplements? Yeah, actually, I started taking this and, vitamin B6 wasn't doing anything. So I went with B12, but I have to take it with this thing because then it crosses this barrier and then it actually works a little bit better. How do you know that that's happening?
Yeah.
Like, is there blood panels on this? Have you looked at the research with this? But why are we taking that? And also Brandy made a good point too of like, there's definitely a timing aspect to this. Brandy was taking, I won't mention the supplement, but was taking a supplement for a while. And I looked at the supplement and asked that question, hey, what's the research on this? Here it is. Like, oh, this is all on that website. There's no other research that I can find on this particular
guilty as charged
supplement. So with Brandy, we just kind of talked of like, well, what would happen if you took less of that supplement? Well, I don't know. I haven't tried that. Well, okay, instead of just throwing it out the window or into the trash, maybe take less of it and let's see what happens. Took a little bit less of it, good for a week. Why don't you try a little bit less, and kept going until eventually she didn't take it and was like, well, I feel the same. Nothing has changed. Well, I guess I don't need to spend my money on that particular supplement anymore because it's not doing for me what I thought that it was doing for me. But it wasn't this, even though Brandy exhibited the readiness for it, we still kind of weaned away from it. And again, this is specific to supplements, not talking about medications. That is a different story, but talking about wellness supplements, that if you feel really you need the supplement, but you're not really sure, well, try a little bit less of it and then a little bit less and just kind of see what happens.
That was a great podcast episode, I must say. Like the hydrogen water leading into the further discussion, I think is going to serve our listeners really well.
Good.
Yeah.
Brandy, what's your hope story? Because I still am sitting on the host seat.
Shucks. My hope story is almost simple. It's a simple idea of just showing up for people. We are very fortunate in the area to have friends who are older than us, who then have kids who are like children, and some of them are graduating high school this year. And we recently got to go to 2 different like graduation parties. And I don't know, at our age, like late 20s, early 30s, like we don't have friends, like most of our friends who are our age aren't, you know, they don't have kids, obviously, that are high schoolers. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a natural obligation for people our age to have to go to a grad party, if that makes sense. But goodness, going to the grad parties has been so much fun. And I just think there is such a gift to be able to show up for people when you're invited somewhere. And sure, there's times where you can't, but the one graduation party we went to recently, I felt like I was having a reunion of all of my favorite people here in the area. And not only that, but I got to see people who came up from New Jersey who I'm friends with, but haven't gotten to, like, our paths haven't intercrossed lately. And so I got to like see them and introduce you to new people. And I don't know, it was just so special. And so in the summer, schedules get busy, as we've talked about. In the summer, there's always different things to do and ways to stay active, and concerts to go to or people's parties to go to or whatever. I just want to encourage our listeners to remember the gift of the value of who you are when you show up to something and how loved people are by your presence being there. It's not about bringing a dish to share. It's not about, you know, literally bringing money or whatever. It's literally like your presence at these different functions blesses the people around you. And so don't limit the fact that like your presence at this thing is important and impacts the people around you. So it's a simple hope story, but that was on my heart today to share.
Wow. And I'm supposed to follow that up.
But
the hope story. Wow. So my hope story in spirit of this episode is just curiosity, of just having an open mind and just continue to keep seeking answers and solutions. I think there's a lot of incredible people in this world that truly believe that what they're doing and how they're serving is going to make this world a better place. And yes, some we agree with, other ones we don't agree with, but I think as long as the heart is there, we have a heart for them. And if we can combine that with the science as well, that makes it a little bit better of a relationship. But I think just remaining curious. I know I'm curious all the time. Like people kind of mistake that, oh, you wrote this book and there's these simple, not easy solutions. Yeah, I'm still curious about them. Like I'm looking forward to 30, 40, 50 more years of research coming out that I get to read and just see like what happens as these things evolve, as more technology comes out and research designs improve. Like there's going to be things that we've stated at times that at some point, maybe there might be more evidence showing that that's not the case. And I'm excited for that because it means that we've grown and it means that the field has grown. So I'm excited for that. And just, I think my hope story / hope message is to stay curious.
Yeah.
Ask questions. I think most of the things I've learned in my life is from asking that next question. And similar with hydrogen water. This has health benefits. Well, what's the next question? In what population? All right, ultrasound. This is meant to use sound waves that go in and break up the tissue. And if you use it at a 1 megahertz, it's going to get deeper into the tissue, so you can break it up more with sound waves. And okay, does that actually happen? Or is there other ways that can happen? And then that leads to finding more research, connecting more with people, and getting closer to an answer.
Well, we hope that this episode was enlightening and encouraging, and hopefully my random juicy comments isn't gonna juice up any people too much.
What was the phrase that you used?
Jack frickin' crap.
Jack frickin' crap. All right, well, we'll end on that one.
I'm the way that I am sometimes.
Have a great week. And remember, each day is not just a day to become hopeful. It's an opportunity to become hope.
The Hope Not Know podcast is meant for educational, informational, and personal development purposes only and does not constitute any health or medical advice. If you're looking for specific advice, connect with us to work with a Hope coach. The Hope Not Know podcast shall not be liable or responsible for any loss or damage allegedly arising from any information or suggestions in this podcast.